I knew the moment I opened my mouth that I had just ruined the quiet, invisible life I had worked so hard to build. For 2 years, I moved through Mr. Blackburn's mansion like a shadow, a shy maid who polished floors, dusted priceless shelves, and pretended not to see the bloodstains I sometimes scrubbed off the marble. My name was Isabella Hernandez, but in this house, I was nobody, a ghost in a uniform. But that night, something inside me pushed past the fear I had swallowed for so long. He was walking toward the front door, car keys in hand, his voice sharp as he argued on the phone about someone named Rivera. His steps were fast, confident, and full of a quiet danger I had come to recognize over time. Men like Lucas Blackburn did not rush unless the world behind them was on fire. I should have stayed silent. I should have kept my eyes down. But I felt something cold slide up my spine, and the words burst out before I could stop them. "Don't leave tonight." The entire entrance hall froze. 2 guards reached for their guns. Mrs. Wilson stopped breathing, and Mr. Lucas Blackburn, the Mafia boss who never once looked at me longer than a second, turned fully toward me with eyes that could cut steel. For the first time, he actually saw me. I felt my heart pounding so hard it hurt. My throat went dry. I had never spoken to him directly before. My job was to clean his study and stay invisible. Medical school dropout turned maid, a nobody with a mop. But tonight I wasn't invisible. "I saw someone by your car," I whispered. "There was a figure crouching under it about an hour ago. They disappeared before security could check the cameras." For a long, terrifying moment, he just stared at me. His expression unreadable. His jaw tight, the room too silent. "You're the new maid," he said, as if identifying a threat or a puzzle piece he had previously ignored. My cheeks heated, as every guard eyed me like I had confessed to a crime. "I've worked here for 2 years, sir," I answered softly, trying to sound braver than I felt. Another long silence. Then he lifted a hand and spoke in a tone so calm it made my stomach twist. "Full inspection of the Bentley. Now." The guards rushed out. I stayed rooted to the spot, wishing I could melt into the carpet. I didn't dare look at him, but I could feel the weight of his stare, heavy and cold, as if he were trying to figure out how a maid had noticed something his trained security had missed. Minutes passed like hours. When Frank, the night guard, returned, his face was pale. "Sir, there was a remote detonator attached to the fuel line." His voice shook. "It would have blown the car the moment you turned the ignition." I felt my lungs stop working. Everyone slowly turned toward me. Mr. Blackburn's face changed. Not softness, not gratitude, but something sharp. A recognition, a shift in the air I could feel in my bones. "It seems," he said quietly, "that I owe you my life, Miss Hernandez." My knees weakened. I didn't know if he meant that as a blessing or a curse. "How?" he continued, stepping closer. "Did you notice something my security did not?" There was no point lying. I swallowed hard. "When people don't look at you," I said, "you learn to see everything." Quote. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if that answer told him more about me than I meant it to. He dismissed the guards and motioned for me to follow. My legs felt stiff as I stepped into his study, a room I usually entered only with cleaning supplies. A room where dangerous decisions were made. Now he was inviting me inside, as if I belonged there. The door closed behind me, sealing us in silence. He studied me from behind his desk, the light catching the silver at his temples, the tension in his shoulders, the kind of exhaustion that medicine textbooks once taught me to recognize. I noticed the tremor on his left hand, faint but real, his heart condition, the one no one talked about, the one that could kill him. "You saw a threat to me," he said. "And instead of staying silent, you warned me. Why?" My chest tightened, because someone would have died. He held my gaze for a long time, and for the first time I saw something behind his cold eyes, a hint of curiosity, maybe even respect. His security chief arrived with more evidence. Hidden cameras, listening devices, tracking tools. Rivera's name came up again and again. Whoever wanted him dead had been planning it carefully. When they finished, Mr. Blackburn turned to me again. "You can't go home tonight," he said. "If Rivera learns you ruined his plan, you become a target." My breath caught. "What?" "You stay here, in the guest suite. Security will collect your belongings." His tone left no room for argument. "Your ordinary life ends tonight." My world tilted. My pulse thundered in my ears. I was a maid, a shy one, a nobody. And now the most dangerous man in Phoenix was telling me I had just stepped into a war, that I was no longer invisible, that I had saved his life, and that someone outside was waiting to kill either him or me. "Don't leave tonight," the shy maid cried to the Mafia boss. He froze, seeing what waited outside. I barely slept that night. The guest suite they placed me in was bigger than my entire apartment. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the clothes I had used for cleaning. My hands were shaking. My mind kept replaying the moment Frank announced the detonator. If I had stayed silent, Mr. Blackburn would be dead, and maybe everyone standing in that hall would be too. Around dawn, there was a soft knock on the door. Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper, stepped in holding a tray of food. Her expression held something I had never seen directed at me in this house. Respect mixed with fear. "He wants you in the study for breakfast," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. I walked the long hallway, passing guards who looked at me differently now. Not like a maid. More like a variable they couldn't calculate. When I entered the study, he was already there, sitting behind his desk with perfectly straight posture. A cup of black coffee steamed beside him. He didn't look at me right away. He just said, "Sit." I sat. Only then did he lift his eyes to mine, gray, sharp, unreadable. "Your mother's medical expenses will be handled," he said calmly, as if discussing the weather. "I have arranged for her transfer to Phoenix Memorial under Dr. Bennett. She will receive the best care." My breath caught in my throat. I don't understand," I whispered. "Why would you do that?" He set his coffee down and leaned back in his chair. "You saved my life. I pay my debts." My throat tightened. "That's not a debt, sir. Anyone would have warned you." He raised an eyebrow. "But no one did, except you." I didn't know what to say. Gratitude mixed with fear made it hard to breathe. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression darkened. "Rivera denies involvement," he said. "He maintains the peace between us is still intact." There was something underneath his tone that told me the peace was already gone. Later that day, Mrs. Wilson led me to a room I had never seen before, hidden behind a bookcase. A surveillance room filled with monitors, wires, and screens showing every corner of the mansion. "Mr. Blackburn wants you to observe the meeting tonight," she said. "Why me?" I asked. She hesitated. "Because he trusts what you see." The words made my skin warm. No one had ever said something like that to me in years. That evening, I watched through the cameras as Rivera arrived with his men. The tension was thick. They sat at the dining table like two kings pretending they didn't want the other dead. Rivera smiled politely. "Assassination is beneath us, Lucas." Mr. Blackburn's face remained calm. "Interesting, since a device traced to your warehouse was attached to my car." I watched Alvarez, Rivera's right-hand man, shift forward in his seat. His hand drifted toward his jacket. Rivera made the smallest motion, and Alvarez froze. They ended the meeting with fake smiles, a war disguised as politeness. After they left, Mr. Blackburn stayed alone at the table for several minutes. He held his wife's old wedding band between his fingers. His expression finally cracked in a way I had never seen before. For the first time, he looked human. 3 days later, everything changed again. One of Mr. Blackburn's lieutenants was found dead in his home. A sniper shot through his bedroom window. Rivera's message was clear. The war had begun. That night I was in my suite reading a medical journal when I heard a soft knock on my door. When I opened it, he was standing there, Lucas Blackburn. His presence filled the doorway. "I need your help," he said. My heart thudded once, hard. Help with what? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. You understand medical vulnerabilities, human weaknesses. I need someone who can evaluate Rivera's organization from the inside. I blinked in confusion. You want me to spy? You already see more than most trained agents, he said. Rivera will never suspect you. He doesn't see people like you. I felt my cheeks burn. What does that mean? He held my gaze. He underestimates you. That is your advantage. He handed me a folder with profiles of Rivera's inner circle. My hands shook as I held it. Lucas, I whispered before I could stop myself. I clean your floors. I'm not this. You are exactly this, he said quietly. You are invisible to them, but not to me. Those words hit me harder than they should have. The plan was dangerous, terrifying, but the thought of saving lives, of finally using my medical training again, made something inside me wake up. 24 hours later, I was hired as domestic help in Rivera's mother's mansion. Invisible again, but dangerous this time. Every day I watched Rivera and memorized his symptoms, his untreated diabetes, his tremors, his fatigue, his mood shifts. All information Lucas needed. Every night I returned to the Blackburn estate through a back route. We met in his study to discuss what I'd learned. Our meetings grew longer, our voices softer, our eyes holding contact for a little too long, lines blurred. One evening after a long debrief, he asked quietly, "Why did you really drop out of medical school?" I told him the truth, about my mother, about the bills, about the guilt of choosing between my dream and her life. His eyes softened just a little. You deserved better. Something shifted between us in that moment. Something warm, something dangerous. Weeks passed. I became the most valuable invisible person in Phoenix. Until the night, I found something in Mrs. Rivera's calendar that changed everything. Something that made Lucas look at me like I was the key to ending the war. But I didn't know yet that what waited outside would end more than just a war. It would rewrite my entire life. The night of the charity gala felt unreal, as if someone had lifted me out of my old life and placed me inside a world built of glass and diamonds. For years I scrubbed bathrooms and polished silver in silence, but now I stood in front of a mirror wearing an emerald dress that shimmered with every breath I took. My hair curled gently around my shoulders. My lips carried a soft rose color. I barely recognized myself. When Lucas entered the room to escort me, he stopped walking for a moment. His eyes traveled slowly from my shoes to my face, and something warm flickered in them. He hid it quickly, but I saw it. "You clean up well," he said, his tone low and steady. My stomach fluttered. I still feel like a maid pretending to be someone else. He stepped closer, adjusting a strand of my hair behind my ear. His touch made my breath catch. "Isabella," he said quietly, "no one in that room will see you as a maid tonight. Stay close to me. Understand?" Quote. I nodded, unable to speak. Rivera's mansion glowed with blinding luxury. Crystal chandeliers, gold railings, marble floors, so polished they reflected the lights like water. Guests whispered the moment we entered. Some stared openly. Others pretended not to. I felt their curiosity like heat on my skin. Who is she? Why is he with her? Is she important? Is she dangerous? For the first time, my invisibility was gone. Victor Rivera approached with a smile that made my spine tense. His eyes slid over me with surprise, then calculation. "Ms. Hernandez," he said smoothly. A very unexpected guest. I forced a polite smile. "Thank you for having us." Lucas placed his hand on my lower back, a subtle but unmistakable gesture of protection. Rivera noticed. Everyone noticed. "She has many skills," Lucas said calmly, "more than people assume." Their eyes locked. It was a quiet warning. We moved through the ballroom, past guests, laughing and sipping champagne. My heart raced. I kept cataloging the smallest details, the tremors in Rivera's fingers, the slight sway in his posture. His blood sugar was dropping. The window of vulnerability had begun. I leaned closer to Lucas. "It's starting." He nodded once. "Stay near me." But before we could act, a sharp blast echoed from the garden. The windows rattled. Guests screamed. A second explosion shook the floor. Lights flickered. Lucas reacted instantly. He grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a marble column as gunfire erupted outside. People ran in every direction, heels breaking, glasses shattering, bodies pushing against each other in chaos. "This isn't Rivera's move," Lucas whispered urgently. "Someone else is here." My pulse pounded. "Who?" "The Mendoza cartel." Fear shot through my stomach. They were known for wiping out entire organizations in one night. Doors burst open as armed men in tactical gear stormed into the ballroom. Their faces were covered. Their movements were precise, military-like. People dropped to the floor screaming. Lucas shielded me with his body. He moved us toward a side hallway he knew by heart. "We need to get to the panic room," he said. "Rivera will head there too." Quote, "We ran through the hallway, dodging falling debris. Shots rang out behind us. Twice, Lucas fired back with a steady hand, hitting the men who were closing in. He didn't hesitate. He didn't flinch. He fought like a man with something to protect." When we reached the service hall, we found Mrs. Rivera lying on the ground, blood spreading across her silk dress. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes fluttered weakly. My training took over. "She's going into shock," I said, dropping beside her. "We don't have much time." Lucas hesitated. Save her or save ourselves? The choice showed on his face. Then he made it. "We're taking her," he said. "Help me lift her." Rivera's guards were gone. The whole building was falling apart under gunfire and explosions. We carried her through the corridor to Rivera's office, where he and two of his men were barricaded. Rivera spun around with his gun raised. "What have you done to her?" he yelled. "She's alive because of her," Lucas said, jerking his head toward me. "And she won't stay alive unless we work together." Quote, I applied pressure to the wound, trying to slow her bleeding. Rivera's hands trembled, part fear, part diabetes. He looked close to collapsing himself. "We need a hospital," I said. "She won't make it otherwise." "We won't make it unless we move now," Lucas replied. "Isabella, guide us." A strange mix of fear and responsibility filled me. These two powerful men, the same men who would kill each other under different circumstances, were staring at me for direction. "Follow me," I said. We moved fast. I led them through the narrow service hallways I had memorized during my weeks of spying. The Mendoza gunmen were everywhere, clearing rooms, sweeping corridors. Twice Lucas took them down before they spotted us. Rivera's breathing was ragged. His mother clung to life in my arms. "The maintenance tunnel," I said. "We're close." We reached the hidden closet. Lucas shot the lock and kicked it open. A ladder led down into darkness. "You go first," he told me. "I'll cover you." One by one, we descended into the tunnel. Behind us, explosions shook the mansion. The walls rumbled. The floor vibrated. The entire Rivera empire was collapsing above our heads. When we reached the exit near the groundskeeper's shed, Lucas eliminated the last two gunmen standing guard. His face was streaked with sweat and dust, his shirt torn, his breathing heavy. But when he looked at me, something softened. "You saved us," he said. I couldn't speak. Not yet. Not with adrenaline still shaking my hands. Sirens echoed in the distance. The mansion behind us lit up with fire, lighting the sky orange. Rivera stood silent, staring at the destruction of everything he had built. Lucas turned to him. "This ends now. We work together or we all die." Rivera nodded, defeated, and just like that, a truce was formed. A truce born of blood, fire, and one maid who dared to speak a single sentence. But I didn't know then that my biggest danger wasn't the cartel outside. It was the feelings growing inside me for the man who saved my life as much as I saved his. The weeks after the attack felt surreal. Phoenix, a city once divided by fear and territory lines, shifted into something new as Lucas and Rivera formed a forced alliance. Two rivals blending power to survive a bigger enemy. Two empires rebuilding from ashes. Two men who once aimed guns at each other now held strategy meetings across polished tables. And somehow, in the middle of all of this, I was no longer invisible. I became the bridge between their worlds. The quiet maid who once scrubbed their floors now carried medical reports, surveillance summaries, and risk assessments. I evaluated the health of their men, coordinated safety protocols, and established wellness checks for people who spent their lives facing violence. One day, Lucas stopped at my new office inside the mansion. A real office, with my name on the door. "You've changed everything," he said as he leaned against the frame. I looked up from the medical chart I was reviewing. "I just noticed things you needed to see." He shook his head slowly. "No, Isabella, you made this organization stronger than it has ever been." A warm pressure filled my chest. His words reached deeper than praise. They healed something inside me I didn't know was wounded. My mother's recovery was steady and hopeful. Dr. Bennett said her new medication plan was working better than expected. Her new apartment near the hospital gave her comfort she had never known. She told me every phone call, "Misha, you sound different, stronger, happier." Maybe she heard something in my voice I was still afraid to admit. Rivera's mother recovered as well. Our weekly visits turned into long conversations where she told me stories from her childhood, advice on patience, and warnings about men who lived half their lives in shadow. She trusted me now, trusted me enough to say, "Behind every powerful man is someone who sees him clearly. Be careful how clearly you see." Her words lingered, but it was the quiet moments with Lucas that unsettled me the most. One evening, after a long day of reviewing security protocols, Lucas appeared in my doorway and said, "Walk with me." He didn't ask. He simply offered a choice he already knew I would take. We stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city. Warm Arizona air brushed my skin. Lights shimmered across the skyline like scattered stars. Lucas stood beside me, just far enough not to touch, but close enough that I felt the heat of him. "I saw you that first day," he said softly. I turned to him, surprised. He kept his eyes on the city, not fully, not clearly, but something about you stood out, even when you tried to hide. My breath caught. "You never looked at me." "I did," he said, "more than you realized." A silence settled between us, a warm, electric silence. "You saved my life," he continued. "And then you saved Rivera's mother. And then you saved an entire city from a war that would have destroyed everything." I swallowed, my voice barely steady. "You saved me, too." He finally turned, meeting my eyes with a look that made my heart thrum. "I had everything," he said. "Power, wealth, control. But none of it mattered until you spoke those words." I knew which words he meant. "Don't leave tonight." That night had changed both our lives. When he stepped closer, I felt the air shift. He reached up, gently brushing a strand of hair away from my face the same way he had the night of the gala. "Isabella," he said, my name sounding different on his tongue, "I don't want you invisible anymore." My heart fluttered, unsteady and full. "I don't know how to fit into your world," I whispered. "I'm not built for violence, or power struggles, or—" He shook his head. "You're built for exactly what this world needs. Someone who sees what we miss, someone who keeps us human." He took my hand. His touch was warm, grounding, real. For a moment, everything outside the balcony, gangs, alliances, enemies, history, fell away. It was just him and me, the shy maid and the Mafia boss. Two people who should never have crossed paths. Two lives rewritten because I dared to speak one warning. The war eventually faded into memory. The Mendoza cartel was pushed out. The alliance between Lucas and Rivera became strength instead of desperation. The city calmed. And Lucas and I, we found ways to build something normal in the middle of chaos. Breakfast on the balcony. Quiet evenings where he reviewed files beside me as I studied for medical exams. Soft moments where his hand rested against mine under the table. Slow, steady, growing love in a place that once only knew fear. One night he pulled me close, his voice warm against my ear. "Isabella, the moment you told me not to leave, I think that was the moment I knew my life was going to change forever." I smiled, feeling tears prick my eyes. "It changed mine too," I said. He kissed my forehead gently, like a promise. "You're not invisible anymore," he whispered. And for the first time in years, I believed him.